Hi, guys, and welcome back to another Dutch edition of the Candid Coxcast, where I butcher all of the Dutch. My name is Whitney Powell.
I'm Emma.
And I'm Julia.
And with our very special guest host today, which I'm really excited about having on to talk about this, we have a pretty big topic to cover today, and one that I'm sure you guys get a lot of questions about. I know I sure do. And that's how coxswains get better when you're not actually being coached. So how do we get better when no one teaches us anything? We just show up day one, or it's been a while, and we're just expected to start leading a crew. It's really hard to do that. So I want to dive into some of these questions and topics, but first I want to get to know a little bit more about who you both are, because you both have some very interesting perspectives and actually do, we'll get into this later, but do have a very good coxswain coach. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, just tell our audience a little bit about who you are.
So my name is Emma. And I started out with rowing, I think 4 years ago in 2016. At first I started with rowing, and then after 1 year I switched to coxing, mainly because of Julia. Then I did the Club 8 women for 1 year. And also the year after that I coxed the freshman women's 8. So in the Netherlands, the levels of rowing are quite a bit different from other countries. But right here we have basically Club 8 and freshmen, which is also a varsity level kind of crew. But then it's the first year that you really do it at that level. So I did that. And then also I started some races with more experienced rowers. So second or third year rowers. All local races. And then I also did a really fun thing, which was coxing the Hong Kong lightweight men's 8 at the Holland Baker in 2018, which was a really cool experience. And also it was coxing in English for the first time for me. But that was really cool.
You?
No, it was lightweight.
No, it was lightweight.
Just lightweight.
Lightweight, yeah.
I didn't know if the lightweights also entered the regular.
Yeah, it was, I think, probably the last time that lightweight 8 event was on the Holland Baker, and also because of the Asian Games later on in that year, that's why they raced at that event. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, sorry I interrupted.
No, that's fine. And then this year I started out with coxing, but then I switched back to rowing again. So now I'm in the lightweight women's freshman crew. So that's really cool.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And we'll definitely kind of talk about that. That's part of the reason I wanted to have you both on, because you also have both perspectives. So
yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Also, I'm Julia. Yeah. I'm Emma's sister, as you can tell, maybe. And I started coxing in 2016 at my former club, Euros, which is in another student city in the Netherlands. And I coxed the freshman women's 4. And then I moved back to Amsterdam and I joined Skoll. And then I coxed the club men's 8 in 2017, and the development women's squad in 2018, the lightweight freshman 8 last year in 2019, and this year I'm on the varsity women's 8, so that's the elite level in our squad. And I also did like a combination of Skoll Neros last year. That was an elite lightweight 8, so that was pretty fun as well. And I did some races with more experienced rowers as well. And I even got the chance to stand in for Peter last year at the Heineken Roeivierkamp, which was pretty nice. So yeah, that's me.
That's pretty amazing. And so how was it coxing Neros and Skoll? Because I know there's a bit of a rivalry sometimes.
Yeah, but it worked out pretty well. we had to get used to like the rhythm, because Nearest has a very completely different rhythm than we have at Skoll. But yeah, it worked out great, and we won the national championships, although there's no national championships in lightweight eights anymore for elite rowers. So we're not national champions, but we are. So yeah.
But you are.
Yeah, but we are. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, clearly with a very diverse background, you guys have both done some amazing coxing and rowing, men's, women's, lightweight, heavyweight, different clubs, some really cool stuff. So let's dive into this and talk about, first of all, what are some of the challenges that coxswains have? Like, why is coxing so hard?
Yeah, well, I think it's hard because the first time you get in a boat, the rowers expect you to be good straight away. They're used to a good coxswain, or they know more experienced coxswains, and when you're new, the experience, they think you'll be as good as them, and that's totally not true. I mean, when they started rowing, they couldn't row right away as well. So it's so weird that they think you're good at coxing right away. I think that's one of the things that really makes this hard. I think not crashing the boat is a job itself. And when you're new, I mean, I was completely focused on not hitting anything the first time I was in a boat. And then at making calls, doing drills, etc. And then having to be perfect just builds up stress. And that makes this so hard as well. And another thing I think is that in each new boat or each new crew you get, you'll feel like you're new again. So you have to learn again or improve again. And this just continues. So that's what making it so hard, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, it's also pretty scary to just, get in a boat for the first time and not really know what you're doing. So that's what we with novice coxswains at our club do, is we just put them in a boat with more experienced rowers, and then the only thing that they have to focus on is actually steering the boat and controlling the boat, and also minding a little bit of the safety on the water. Because I remember, like, the first time I got in a boat, I was so overwhelmed by all the different aspects that you have to be able to control. Even when I was more experienced, it took me quite some time, I think even like up to half a year, to really get to grasp with controlling your steering and the boat, and then also just like keeping your attention to what the rowers are doing, what the coaches are saying to you. So there's so many different aspects that you have to control, which is, that's really challenging, definitely in the beginning. And at some point, everything becomes more automatic, and then you can improve. But at first, that's a really big challenge to get to know all the different aspects and to learn to control them. But also, I think it's finding your role and your place in the team, which is quite challenging in the beginning when you start out. Definitely when you are assigned a certain crew, who you're going to be with for the rest of the season, defining your role and your relationship with your teammates is really quite a challenge. Like, are you going to be more formal, more like a coach, or are you going to be more like a friend? And then that's kind of like, how does that impact your role in and outside the boat, which are very different challenges as well. Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how many skill sets you have to have and how many lines you sort of have to walk as a cox. Like, are you exactly like you said, are you the coach? Are you the teammate? Are you both? When do you not, or when do you do one or the other?
It's also like when people or ask you what you're doing, or when you say that you're a coxswain and they say, oh, you're just sitting in the boat and you're basically pulling some strings and just shouting at your rowers. And then when you actually tell them, well, yeah, that's what I do, but I also have to pay attention to what it is that they're actually doing, make sure that I understand what they're doing, feel the boat, and get them to improve the stroke and the boat flow. So it's actually multitasking at its finest.
Yeah.
And once people understand that, I find that they have more respect for what coxes do in general.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. And so let's talk about the learning curve a little bit too, because I feel like, and feel free to disagree, but I feel like rowers sort of have a stroke. Yes, of course they have to learn new things every day and they're constantly getting better, but they essentially have a stroke that they repeat over and over again, and they can fine tune that from day one. And so their learning curve is much different than ours, where we have to learn to steer, make the calls, the timing of the calls. I mean, there's so many things that go into what we do that the rowers could easily surpass us early on. And be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, how come you're not calling it this way or doing it this way or saying this or steering that way, or, whatever it is, when, they sort of have one thing that they're doing over and over again. Not to discount it. I'm not discounting rowing in any way. But it is just a little, like, do you guys think the learning curve is different for rowers and coxswains?
Well, first of all, we don't have ERG scores, so we can compare or see progress like that in that way. But I think it also depends on where you start as a coxswain and as a crew. If you're all new to the sport, I think the learning curve will be pretty much the same. But if you get in a boat with more experienced rowers, you have to do double the work. So you have to feel the boat, understand what they're doing, why you're doing this drill, how is it supposed to feel, what am I feeling, is this correct, is this incorrect? You have to do double the work to make sure you're keeping up with the rowers. So yeah.
It's more work that you have to do at the same time. I think you have to improve your own skills, but also understand what the rowers are learning at that time and place, and remember that and learn that as well. So it's definitely double the work, I'd say. So maybe the learning curve, it maybe is the same as for rowers, but you have to put in more effort to keep it the same.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. And so what would you say, what would a strategy be for somebody, let's say a newer coxswain gets into a more experienced boat and they're expected to just do a good job. They're expected to lead, but they're fairly new. What is something that you would recommend them doing just right off the bat to be able to sort of slow down and execute the drill or whatever they're supposed to be doing on the water, when it's a little bit intimidating that there are better rowers in the boat?
Yeah, I think it's about confidently make mistakes is what I would say.
I love that.
Maybe you can. It's not really fake it till you make it, but it is. It's also really about, I don't know, gaining some respect and talking with your rowers and make sure that they understand where you are at that point. But also make sure that what you do comes across as being confident, whilst from the inside you might be dying of insecurity and stress. But if you act confident, then the rowers they're more likely to accept what you're doing. So I think that's one big key of, taking the lead while not being very experienced, definitely with more experienced crews. But also, if you are in such a situation, you can also just ask the coaches or the rowers at that point. It's like, I don't really understand the drill or what I have to do at this point, and let them explain it to you and then execute it. Because then you have basically shown that you don't really know it, but you've also shown the courage to show that you are a little bit insecure in the area. Let them help you and then execute it. And if then something goes wrong, they can point it out and they can help you further, or they can maybe afterward tell you what you did wrong. Yeah. But I think that's just the best way to go with it.
Yeah. Be honest. I think it's the best to be honest about everything you do. So if you don't know what you're doing, it's okay to okay, we're going to stop this drill. tell me more about how does this work, or I don't understand this and I'm new, can you help me? I think that's really important.
It's like being a leader is not about not being confident. It's about, I think, also owning up to your lesser qualities and showing that you want to improve them. And I think that builds respect from your crew, and that is the keystone of what leadership is built on.
Yeah.
They accept what you do if they have respect for you and if you build that respect. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. Show them that you're working. Yeah.
That's so true. I think that's so true. And I think so many coxswains, new and fairly experienced, kind of depending on what crew you're with, can really experience that insecurity. And I know, I mean, I get messages personally, you guys probably do too, about coxswains that are like, I'm almost ready to quit. Like, I love the sport, but I just don't feel like I just keep being put in this position where I have to perform, but I don't feel prepared to do so. I don't, I feel like I'm just messing up over and over and over again. And I think that self-confidence is so huge.
Yeah. Well, what I would like to say to those who are feeling that is keep in mind that the rowers cannot make every stroke perfect as well. When the coaches are telling them things from the sidelines, they're most often critiquing something that they're doing or trying to make the rowers row better. So just remember that they're not executing every stroke perfectly. So you don't have to execute every call or every steering movement perfectly. And it's okay to be reminded of that sometimes and keep that in the back of your mind when you're feeling a little bit insecure about what you're doing. And also, I think that you really grow by making those mistakes, and we've all been there. We've all made the same mistakes probably. So just keep trying and not quit. It's really hard. It is also because not many people understand what the hell it is that you're doing. And it's really hard work. But just know that it's worth it once you do know what you're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, even elite rowers catch crab sometimes. So if they can catch a crab, you're allowed to make a mistake. I mean, seriously, you know, and that's how the way I look up to it. Yeah.
It's definitely so true. I think removing that pressure, just on yourself, I think really, really helps. And it's really hard to do that because you do at some point have to execute things correctly. Like you do have to execute a drill. You know, you don't want to call a distance, the wrong distance, but you will, you know, you'll do it wrong. You will make the mistakes. You'll time something incorrectly, call something on a wrong stroke. It's just going to happen.
It happens, and it depends on what level you're coxing on, what the gravity of the consequences of like badly executing a drill is. But most of the times you can recover from that. It's just like one section of your training session or your piece, and you can recover from that. So it's not the end of the world to make that tiny little bit of mistake. You know, you have a lot of sessions after that and sessions before that who've gone perfectly fine. So
yeah, if I make a mistake or if I'm not sure whether I'm doing it right, I'll just think, okay, or I'm messing up a turn. I'll just think, okay, I've nailed this turn before. I failed it this time. I'll nail it next time. You know, so yeah, be confident that you'll make it work sometime, and maybe you already did in the past, and you'll make it work again. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We talked to Aranka about this a little bit, and also one of my other guests a few podcasts ago. So I'd love to know what you guys think when you do make a big mistake. Let's say you call a distance wrong or really mess up a turn. What do you do immediately after to recover or reassure your crew that it either won't happen again or that you're really sorry?
I'll curse inside, like, you know, like in myself, I'll go, oh, yeah. And maybe said, yeah, okay, after practice, okay, yeah, I failed that turn. I know my mistake. I'll do it better next time. You really, at the moment, you've already made a mistake. So you cannot go back in time and do it over. So you'll do it good, you know. So maybe to recover from it is be honest about your mistake, and maybe ask questions how to get it right next time. If you call a distance wrong, okay, yeah, well, that can happen. I'll get it right next time. I'll pay more attention to it next time. Yeah, things like that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's also the way that Aranka put it. It's just like owning up to, like, okay, guys, I got it wrong. Is it happened to me so often to get like the final sprint in a 2K race just like in too early. But also, or just like count the strokes, the final strokes. I say, okay, 10 more strokes, and then it was 20 more strokes instead of 10. Oh. And it really happened a lot to me. But then I was just like, okay, so it's 5 more, it's 5 more, 5 more. And then after the race, I would just like talk with the girls or the boys and be like, yeah, I'm sorry about that, but we did go for it. So, you know, maybe in the race, it's not the best time to make the excuse right away. No. But then you just see at that point what you need to recover from it. If it's a bad turn, you're just like, okay, I didn't get this one, but we're going to make all the effort to get the next one.
Yeah. Or maybe in a head race on a river with a lot of bends, you can own up to your mistake and said, okay, well, the turn didn't quite turn out the way I was expecting or the way I wanted it to. So we'll have to do this to correct this. Yeah, maybe. And then
let the rowers help you may also be a very good way. Just like we always tell our novice coxes and ourselves to, you know, if you're going for a turn, to tell your rowers that you're going for it and that you need their strength to pull you through. But maybe if you've made a mistake, you can tell them like, I made a mistake and I need you to help me fix it. Because, you know, it is a team sport after all, and you're not in it alone. You've got 8 or 4 incredible rowers in front of you or behind you who really want to help you win the race as well. So I think, yeah. And then afterwards, just talk about it.
That's so true. That's something that I try to tell coxswains a lot, that I think is really easy to forget, that it's your race too.
Yeah.
Like, you are not just there driving a vessel for 4 or 8 rowers. Like, it's your race too. And so I think when you are a little bit more empowered with that knowledge, you're like, I'm racing too. Like, I want to win. You know, I want to do okay too.
It does take some time to get that feeling though, but once you got, you can play with it a little bit more. So if you do make a mistake, you can, you know, say, okay, we're a team. We're going to fix this together.
Yeah. Or when you're behind in a race, okay, we're behind, but when you're winning, you said you are winning. So you can mentally play with the part of you being on the team, not being on the team. Well, you're on the team, obviously, but yeah, you know, you get what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really easy to forget that you are a very important part of that, and it's your race too. So I think, and that took me a long time to realize that.
And learn that. It took me like 1.5 years or 2 years to finally like realize like this is my race as well. I'm not just here for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like that,
I want to enjoy this.
Yeah, like that boat in that lane is trying to take something from me, and that's no,
you're taking it from me. Just like take me to the finish line is like one of my favorite calls. Was one of my favorite calls at the end of last year. It's just like just take me there and make sure that I'm there first.
That's so good. Yeah. That's so good. I mean, we could go into calls all day, and we get a lot of questions about calls.
Let's not. No.
I know. That's a whole different thing. Yeah. But I think that confidence is really important, and it's definitely something that newer coxswains struggle with, especially when they're with it. Yeah, same. I mean, same.
Honestly, yeah. Honestly,
yeah. Same. Like you get into a different boat, a new crew, a new race, new water. It's just an off day. I mean, anything. It could be anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do either of you have a race in mind that you can think of where you were really nervous, like for whatever reason, something was going on, where you were really nervous before? And
I'm always nervous.
I think it was one race last year. It was, I think, the first 2K of this season, and it's the varsity for us, the varsity race. And it was a race course which I've never been on. just as a spectator. So I didn't really know the traffic rules there. So I was just like really nervous in or up front of the race. Like, how do I do with time management, where I do my practice pieces, etc. When do I go to the start? How does it work here? And then it really helped to talk with one of my coaches who was a coxswain the year before and who knew the course. So she just like really helped me, just saying like, okay, you have to pay attention to this, and make sure that you go under that bridge at that time. So that really, really helped. And I think always like the first races of the seasons, whether it's a head race or your first 2K, that's always the most difficult because it's different racing. So it's also different coxing and it's different each time. But that's really nerve-wracking, I think. Yeah.
I think for me, I was really nervous last year when I got to stand in for Peter. Because he had a flat tire. He was on the highway and he had a flat tire. And he called me at 7 a.m. in the morning. Can you stand in for me? I have a flat tire and they have to be on the water in, I don't know what it was, like an hour or something. And I was like, sure, I can be there in 15 minutes. If they have breakfast for me, I'm sure I'll be there. But yeah, it was a crew with like Nicole Beukers, you know, like seriously, like Lisa Schreiner. I mean, seriously, how am I going to do this? I have to be Peter right now, you know, that's big shoes to fill.
Okay, so before you go on, I think a lot of people might not know who Peter is.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
why
of course.
This is such a big deal. So I don't know. Peter, personally, I think is probably one of the world's greatest coxswains, just ever. Yeah. I think he's incredible. So you guys obviously get the privilege of being around him, being coached by him, filling in for him in the races, which is like so cool. So just really quick, like tell people who Peter actually is.
He was the coxswain of the Holland Acht
for many years.
For many years, not even sure how many years. But his final Olympics were the Rio Olympics, and there they won bronze. And after that, he turned to coaching, and he started out at our rowing club. So he's taking care of the freshmen and the second-year rowers, women and men. And he also helps out with coaching the coxswains and selecting the coxswains for each crew.
Yeah.
So
So his main job is to focus on rowers, of course, because he eventually decides whether you're not in the crew. But also for the coxswains.
He teaches us all about, how to perform well on the Amstel River, like how to take turns and what the best entryways to certain parts of the river are. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a privilege. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. He has some very, very cool ways of coaching and just thinking about the sport and approaching.
Yeah.
He's incredible to listen to. So I'm hoping to get him on for maybe the fourth or fifth Dutch edition now of this podcast.
We'll talk to him. Great. We'll talk to him. We'll make sure he does.
Yes, he's incredible, absolutely incredible. So that's really the perfect segue to talk about actually getting coached as coxswains. Yeah. So now you guys are in a very unique position where you have a coxswain as a coach, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So as a new coxswain, let's say you come onto a team and your coach pretty much puts you in a boat, and that's it. Most of us don't have either other coxswains on the team or we're with other novices. So it's novices leading novices or no coaching. What would a coxswain do first to start learning? If you have nothing, if you're not getting coached, you're basically thrown in a boat. What would you do first?
Panic? No. I think for most coxswains, that is true. They panic. They have no clue what to do. They've never heard of a cox box. They'll just get one. What the fuck do I do with this? Like, seriously, what is this thing? How do I turn it on? Those are legit questions we get every day at the beginning of the season. What is this? How does it work?
Yeah.
And then how do I steer straight, or how do I not hit anything? Like, oh, there's a bend. Oh, there's traffic coming my way. What do I do? I think, yeah, that's.
How long does it take to steer an 8 too? A lot of coxswains, like you drive it like a car. So you have to then learn, like an 8 doesn't steer like a car.
No, it does not. No.
So all those things.
I think it's, well, how you learn is just doing it. And so what we do, or what I did when I first started out, is we have a straight stretch of river, which is the first part that we have to go on to for our training sessions. And I just suggest that if you have that, or if you have a straight water training piece, that you just pull the strings, move the rudder, and see what happens. I think that you learn best by doing it and by experiencing it. Oh, Jesus. Experiencing it.
We'll get there.
And also, I think that if you do not really have a coach who has that much experience with coxswains, you probably have some rowers who do. Definitely, if you're put in a boat with rowers who are more experienced, they have had coxswains before, so just ask them what you have to do. I think that's one of the first and prime resources. And then if there are other coxswains at your club, maybe more senior ones, just go and ask them for help.
So what we do at the beginning of the year is we always put like a new coxswain on the water with a more experienced coxswain. So, and then before they talk a little to the new coxswain, okay, so this is the boat, this is how you get in, this is your cox box, this is how you use it. And then we check the rudder and the steering, and then, okay, so if you take this to port, and this is how we take it to starboard, and stuff like that. And then on the water, they can discuss as well. So, yeah.
So what do you think?
That's really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And so what do you think a few ways might be that coxswains can help other coxswains in a constructive way? Because in a way, you're also the competition. Maybe not if you're the older coxswain, or if you're the senior coxswain, you might not be. But when you are teammates, but you're also sort of helping potential competition, what are some ways that coxswains can sort of help each other in a positive way, do you think?
I think it's definitely in those times of competition that you can be of most use for each other, because you're in the same situation and you're probably dealing with the same issues. Of course, you might want to get selected for that boat, and you don't want the other one to be selected for the boat. But it may help you to just talk to each other and see if you have the same problems, and then talk about it and see whether you find solutions to it. Or if you have experienced one problem and they don't, just tell them how you dealt with it, and just like share experiences. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And then if you have more senior coxswains on your club, like we do, we have a whole separate committee existing of solely coxswains, and our prime goal is to educate every one of them and make them better coxswains, is to organize education sessions, watch each other's recordings, because that's what we do a lot. We record our sessions and races, and then we watch them, and then we tell everyone what we do like, what we don't like, how they might do things differently in the future. But also maybe ask them to go along with you during sessions, and maybe call in, and just talk to them and share experiences.
Yeah, I think what we're doing here at Skoll, with the committee and everything, we're really being helpful to each other, and we really want to help the new coxswains improve. But that is after they've already made the team. So before they're making the team, we also, this year we started, we did it for the first time, I think, that we organized a little educational evening for new coxswains, to teach them the basics and to discuss with each other the experiences they had over the first few weeks. And that was really helpful, and it will give you a direction in which you might want to go with your career. So yeah, that's pretty nice.
Like even if you're each other's competition, I just suggest to team up. There are not that many coxswains around, and it's really something that you have to experience before you really know what it is that you're dealing with. So just set aside the competitive feelings and just talk with each other and help each other out. I think that's the best.
On the water, it's okay to be competitive. I mean, that is very important on the water, but off the water, it's also important to be mindful and to help each other out. I think that is a really important factor into helping other coxes get better.
I agree. We've talked about this before on other podcasts as well. And I always say, just leave it out on the water. Like if you want to be competitive, be teammates off the water, because you're never going to execute even the same drill or the same thing in the same way or in the same words. And so the rowers will, like, the competition will take care of itself.
Yeah, definitely.
But don't cut off other boats. I mean, that's
no, not like that. Not sabotage.
Like be fair. Still.
Yeah, and some people have more talent than others, and it might take one person a year to learn the same skills as another learns in 2 weeks. But that's fine, and you're not going to get in the way with that by helping each other. And if you want to make a team, you will make it eventually, if it's in 1 year or in 2 years.
Look at me. I've been in the selection period for 3 times, so until I got the team that I wanted. So you have to be there has to be some perseverance as well into getting the boat you want. You might not make it in straight away, but you'll get there eventually. So
yeah, I think that's really true. And so, okay, so let's say that you have a coach that's not a coxswain, doesn't really know that much about coxing. They've had coxswains, maybe they rowed, but they really have no idea how to coach coxswains.
Yeah.
How can coaches, let's say, who are not coxswains, who don't know much about coxing, help empower coxswains to be better?
Okay, so I think the first and foremost important thing is trust. Trust your coxswain. Let your coxswain make decision on its own. You can help or assist if needed, but don't take over control. Unless it's really a life-threatening situation, but just let the coxswain be, and if he or she is making a mistake, don't start yelling at them. You're doing it all wrong. You have to do it like this. No. Just stay calm, and after practice, ask the coxswain, why did you do this, or what's your decision based on? And then let the coxswain explain, and then help the coxswain maybe to see that it could have been solved another way as well. I think that is very important for a coach to know. So just let the coxswain be as well, but also provide help if needed. I think.
Maybe ask them like what it is that you need at that point, what it is that you're struggling with, so that then maybe they don't have the answer, but they can go find out for you, or they have persons who do know and make them talk to you. I think that's also just like be open to your coxswain and reach out. It's also part of your team, not just your rowers. The coxswain is very important too. Because if your coxswain is really good in developing his or her skills, then your team quality will be better overall. So I think it's really important for coaches to know that it is worth your while to invest in your coxswain. Just
make time free for just to talk with your coxswain about what's going on with him or her, and what he or she wants to work on, and then you'll have points to give them feedback on. So I think communication between a coxswain and a coach is very important as well. Yeah,
it really is. I had a coach one time. I mean, well, it was 2 years that I had this coach, and he would just tell me every stroke, say this, I mean, even if it didn't fit in with the crew, it wasn't what the crew needed. And he would just say, like, say this at this stroke, say this at this stroke, say this. And it just got to a point where I was almost ready to quit. I mean, it was so bad that, you know, he was such a dictator and just wanted everything laid out. And I was like, you've never even been a coxswain. Like, I've been coxing, you know, these elite guys during the summer and coming back, and like, you don't listen to anything I have to say. You don't listen to my feedback. You just want to dictate what I say on every single stroke. And it was like, and it was hard to remember everything. It was too much that he wanted. I mean, it was exhausting. And so that was a good lesson for me on how to learn to communicate with a coach as well as a coxswain and kind of stand up for myself.
Yeah.
And say, like, this isn't working. This isn't like, this is not what the crew needs. And I can't work like this.
Yeah.
So this is something we tell our coaches at Skoll as well at the beginning of the year, because each crew has 5 or 6 coaches here. It's a rare thing that some of the coaches have coxed before. And so we'll tell them, okay, take this into consideration, the safety of the crew. Don't let your new coxswain do a piece side by side on a small part of the river with bends, because it's stressful enough to be on a river with bends and then having to do it side by side with maybe another novice coxswain or a more experienced coxswain, but you don't know what you're doing. There'll be traffic coming the other way. It's just not responsible to let a new coxswain do this stuff. So maybe think ahead and do the side by side on a wider part of the river. Things like that.
What I'm hearing you say too there is set your coxswain up to succeed.
Yeah.
So give them everything you possibly can. Consider them part of the team, not just your minion out on the boat.
Exactly. Yeah.
But set them up to do what you want correctly.
Yeah, because if you let them do the piece side by side on a small part of the river, they're gonna crash the boat, you know? Yeah, because you've put them in that situation. And if there's a boat coming the other way, they don't have anywhere to go. So it's your problem as a coach, not the coxswain's fault, but the coxswain will feel it's their fault, you know? So yeah, put them in a situation where they can grow and where they can actually learn. That's better. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, Emma, this might be kind of a good question for you as well, since you've done both. But what do you think now about rowers helping coxswains? So let's say we have experienced rowers in the boat, but it can also be very intimidating for new coxswains if rowers are constantly telling you, like, say this, do this, you know, say it this way, don't do that again, whatever. It can be scary, but also in the heat of the moment, you understand that rowers are not thinking about just being nice. They're tired. They're trying to.
Oh God, we're so selfish.
And so, so how can rowers, let's say out on the water, help newer coxswains or help coxswains execute what they are looking for?
So it's scary as hell as a coxswain to be in a boat with more experienced rowers. I've experienced that being in the Elite 8 at our club while having like minimum coxing experience. But what really helped me was just like being able to look at my stroke, and when I did make a call or something, see him nodding or shaking his head, just like those little signs of improvement or disagreement, and then also them just giving me some advice during the sessions. So we would just be rowing a stretch on the river, and then something was happening, but I didn't really have any experience yet, so I didn't really feel what was going on in the boat. And then the really experienced stroke would tell me, this is going on, and then I could communicate that through the cox box to the whole team, which is really a good way to learn how a boat moves and how does it feel, when do the rowers experience something. Also, with being very gentle on the steering, you have to learn that as well in the beginning. So then they say you maybe take it a little bit more slow for the next turn. I think that's really good. And also try not probably to be very negative during the sessions itself, but keep it for off the water and then just talk with them. And also, if you find anything that was wrong or not that good with the session, just tell them, but also tell them how to do it better next time. And also give some compliments. Don't forget to give some compliments, even if there was some improvement since last time, or whether you did some good things during that session. Just point that out. What I always found really irritating as a cox, but from a rower perspective do understand, is when rowers take over the calls. So when you're not really know what you're saying and you're just calling stuff, and then definitely in bow loaders with really experienced rowers, where the bow would just take over the calls. I understand that from a rower's perspective, because you want your session to be really useful and to get the most out of it that you can at that point. It's not that, maybe it's not that nice for you as a coxswain at that time, but I think that maybe once in a while you have to accept that that happens, and then, you know, just listen to what they are saying and try to see whether you can feel what it is they're pointing at. So if they say we have to really focus on the finish of the stroke, try to see whether you can feel any difference. Instead of making the calls yourself, then just try to see whether you can improve that skill, which was really a useful way for me to become a better coxswain.
I do think that when a rower takes over control or a coach takes over control, this should always be done after discussing it with the coxswain. Because sometimes you're just laying there in a bow loader, or you're just there in the 8, and a rower will start yelling calls or making decisions for you, while you have to be in control. Because if there's danger or if something's going on, the rowers have to respond to you and not to the rowers, because often they can't even see that there's danger coming their way. So I think it's a very good thing to be clear in communication, or discuss before going on the water. Okay, so if I don't know, or if I'm messing up, just tell me that you're going to take over control for 5 minutes, but I can take it back when it's needed, like when we're in danger, and then I'll just listen for a few moments to what you're saying, or I'll be silent for a few minutes, and then I'll try again. I think it's not okay for a rower to take over control completely. That's
so true.
Not done.
You know, actually, this wasn't actually too long ago that this one example came up, but sometimes they're wrong too. Sometimes rowers will take over and they're not right. And so I had a guy just in the, had a pretty good piece. You know, it was kind of quiet. Like I wasn't talking too much, and we were just kind of going along, just doing our steady state. And
it was nice.
Got really mad all of a sudden and started yelling like, "Are we going to do this drill that we're supposed to do with the 750?" And I was like, "Well, we're at the 250 now. So when we get to the 750, we will execute the drill that we're supposed to execute." And he shut him up. And I was like, what, why would you even do that? So, you know, you have to sort of balance, I think, listening to them and taking their advice.
But as a rower, of course, your priority is being able to row as well as you can and make the most out of your practice. But keep in mind that the coxswain needs to learn as well. So if you want to take over some stuff, or if you're not happy with certain stuff, just tell them and make sure that you create a situation where your coxswain can learn from it. I think that's the most important. Also, just don't don't yell at them, don't be mad, but just keep it respectful. That's what I say. Of course, if you really lose a game, it's also your fault. So it's never just like one person who is to blame. Even if you're crashing into a bridge or something, that's not all on the coxswain. So I think it's here again, but it's a team sport. So keep that in the back of your mind also as a rower, also with your feedback. make sure that your coxswain can do something with it, that they can learn.
Or sometimes I would say like, okay, I'll jump out of the boat, you get in the seat. You know, like if you really want to take over control, be my guest. Go do it. I'm out.
Yeah. I always love that one. Like, why don't you and I trade? You and I trade for a session. You try this.
Oh God, yeah.
You should try.
Be a little bit sassy. That's also okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's say that coxswains want to look outside of their club. So they're looking outside of a coach or other coxswains on the team. What other resources or what other places can we find good resources to learn from?
YouTube. Definitely. There are a lot of really good races on YouTube. I mean, you can watch some recordings from Henley. And on YouTube, there are also some for the Dutchies amongst us. There are some really good recordings of some coxswains on 2K races on the Bosbaan or the Willem-Alexanderbaan. And you can just watch them and observe what it is that they are doing.
But also be critical. I mean, because there's also a lot of bad footage on YouTube.
I was going to say, there's a lot of bad races.
There's also, you have to know which videos to look at, but once you do, you can definitely use those. But otherwise, I don't really think there's a lot of material except maybe for like these kind of things, or maybe some paid books or courses or camps. I know that you have coxswain camps in America during the summers. But otherwise, I don't really think that there are any real resources where you can learn how to be a coxswain except for experience and doing it yourself.
And other coxswains.
Yeah, and other coxswains.
The best resource, I think, is to get in touch with another coxswain.
Even from other clubs.
Yeah. And keep in mind that in different countries, we all expect something different from our cox. So you have to keep that in mind. Also, while listening to recordings, think that it might not be the case for you to cox the way they are coxing in the recording.
See it more as an inspiration.
Yeah.
I always really liked watching videos from other coxswains and be like, oh, but that's also a nice way you can use that call, or that's some other words that you can use.
Or how to put in the motivational part in your race, or how do I call where I'm at? You can use those things.
Yeah, I agree. And I always tell coxswains too, really the best way to learn, quote, calls is learn about rowing.
Yeah.
I mean, simply learn more about the sport, because the more you know about the sport, the calls will come. I get a lot of questions about, like, how do I motivate my crew? How do I say this? How do I make this call? And I'm always like, I can't necessarily tell you that.
That's really funny. Yeah. It's something that I experienced, because even when I was coxing, I also used to do a lot of rowing in the skiff. So if we had to do a drill with a focus on a certain point in the stroke, I would just like, it has to feel like this, or it has to make that sound. And then you can adjust your calls on saying, feel that, or I want to hear that.
Or listen for this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really like understanding the movements of the stroke and how it feels to execute each movement is a really useful asset for a coxswain to have. I think that me being a rower right now would make me a better coxswain next year. If I would decide to return, probably not, but if I would, then, and having been a coxswain makes me a better rower as well. So
absolutely. I always suggest that coxswains get in boats as well.
Yeah,
I rode bow, I rode two. Like, frankly, I love it. I'm not adding any speed to the boat, but I'm not.
Neither do I.
I'm not catching crabs.
No.
So
we've actually raced together.
Yeah, we were in a double.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's fun. See, that's so fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun, and also you get some exercise in yourself. So that's really good. And if you do a race, for example, I mean, a lot of what I got last year from my rowers was, but you don't know what it is like to experience this kind of pain, or to be in this race, or to do what I'm doing. And so like, oh, hell yeah, I do. I've done it. Maybe not at the same level, but I have experienced it. I know what it is like. So that's also really good if you're coxing in a race and you just like, okay, so we're gonna hit that 750 mark. What is that gonna feel like for the rowers? I mean, it's gonna be really painful. You still have 1,250 meters to go. So how are you as a coxswain gonna motivate your rowers to keep going? I think that's really good.
Absolutely. And so now that we're here kind of stuck inside really around the world, not a lot of us, well, I don't know anybody that's actually on the water right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what should coxswains do now, you think? Should we just be learning about rowing? What should we be doing now to get better?
Yeah,
and stay sharp?
What we are doing with the coxswains at Skoll is we organize educational sessions through Zoom.
So for example,
Peter, or last Saturday I organized one. So I gave the coxswains like a little case. Okay, we have this race coming up. You make the preparations. Make sure you're on time. Make sure the rowers know what to do. And then they were explaining what they came up with. And I would say, okay, so now a boat bumps into you. What do you do? And so we'll make these little scenarios and then discuss how we're going to react, what's the best solution. Maybe there's not a best solution. There's different options. But yeah, see how we would react and see if we can implement that when we can get back on the water. Yeah, and watch videos. I mean, there's a lot of great races on YouTube. Also, when you can't hear the recording as well, just look at the rowing and try and imagine if you can see like, oh, they're coming off the water nicely. How can I make sure I feel this next time? Or, just visualize a little. Yeah.
And I think what's also really important is to keep in touch with your crew.
Yeah,
and maybe join in on some of the alternative sports that they're doing right now. Just go for a run with them, even though you might not be that of a sportive person yourself. I think, and I know that just means a lot to make sure that you are still a part of the team and to join in on those kind of activities. And I also have noticed that it's very hard for rowers and coaches to kind of make sure that a coxswain is still feeling like she's there. So I would also suggest to all of the rowers and coaches, pay attention to your coxswain as well in this time, because it's not just the rowers whose season was taken away.
No.
It's also the coxswains. So make sure that they are doing okay. And yeah, if so, just teach them more about rowing or more about the mechanics of how steering works, or, how to deal with wind,
rigging, boat setup,
anything that might be useful,
mechanical stuff.
Just teach them. I'd say just keep teaching. Yeah,
that's so good. Oh my god, that's so good. Yes. I love it. And you guys are so lucky to be setting up these Zoom calls and stuff. I think that's a really great idea.
I think it's so easy to do for each club to just organize a meeting with coxswains only and to just chat. Maybe have drinks or anything, or don't talk about rowing at all. Just be together on Zoom and
we have a regular drinks each week with just the coxswains and just talk about how they're doing. But it's also because we are this small community within the club.
Each other's backs.
But, we just get together and hang out and discuss if they're having any problems, but also the fun stuff that they did over these past few weeks. So I think it's just really good to still keep in touch with each other and with your teammates and your coaches and each other. Yeah.
And be supportive. Yeah.
Definitely. And so really a big takeaway that I got from you guys today was, besides all of that, stay in touch, be a team, was also to improve as a cox overall, whether it's from your rowers, other coxswains, or coaches that are trying to help coxswains be better, is to sort of expose yourself, listen to other recordings, you really have to put yourself out there. You have to get in boats in scary situations and just do it and learn and learn how to steer.
It's something vulnerable, But just know that everyone has been there, and that is such a comfort. Yeah.
People
and,
hate listening to their
just
own recordings.
Oh my God, I never listened to my own recordings
I'm
because
already
I hate
scared
my
of this.
voice.
No one wants to hear it.
No, I'm already scared of how I sound on this podcast. So, I'm always scared to send a video to someone because I'm worried about how I sound. But, I don't care anymore. Yeah.
Just remember that you're learning from it and that others might learn from it in the future.
And it's okay to show them a piece that went wrong as well. So you can teach other coxswains, or you can watch yourself. Okay, I'm doing this wrong. Okay, I'm doing this wrong. I don't want to watch this. Okay, but it's useful. I'm learning here, so that's useful as well. Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. Well, I think that's a really good place to wrap up here. I think we really talked about a lot, and that was so great. We'll talk to Peter. We could talk about what you guys do at Skoll. Skoll. Here we go. I'm butchering the Dutch already.
Skoll. Yeah. Skoll.
It's so one day.
Sound. Skoll.
As many times as I've been there, my Dutch is still so bad.
It's fine.
It's such a tough language.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So what do we have coming up next for you guys? Anything? Or are you just kind of also like everyone else?
Well, yeah, right now this season just got canceled last week. So the first races that are starting are probably going to be in September if we're lucky. So for me, it's really about, staying fit, getting some exercises done each week. And once we were able to get back in the boat, just get in and start learning again. I think, that's what's up next.
Yeah, I think that'll be most of us.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah. Praying that Head of Charles is not cancelled. Yeah, praying.
I know you guys will have to let me know if you come.
Yeah, of course we'll do. Yeah.
It will not be me, but it will be Julia.
Yeah, it will be me.
Maybe in a few years I'll be able to row, but no, that's too soon for me right now.
Come for the parties. Come anyway.
Yeah, I will.
It's so fun. It's so fun. Okay, well, where can people follow you both on social media? Can we follow?
So I think that the main account of our committee is on social media as well, but it's kind of difficult to if we pronounce it right now, it's in Dutch,
okay.
so you probably won't be able to.
But
just put it in the shout outs. But it's Stuurgenootschap AR Skoll.
Yeah, good luck with that one. I'm not.
Yeah, so that's the main one.
Sounds Russian.
And that one posts updates about what we're doing as a committee and who we are and the races that we're doing, etc., and the preparations. Then personally, for me, it's Emma Sophie and then XX, which is my Instagram. So yeah, if you have any questions, shoot me a message.
And for me, it's Julia Groenveld. I know it's a difficult last name as well, so probably should put that in the shout out as well. But that's my personal account as well. So yeah, just hit me a message if you struggle with something. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for your time and ideas. And you guys just do the coolest stuff in the Netherlands when it comes to rowing and coxing. And I love it. Doing a Hollenbecker was so fun and just made me fall in love with the Dutch. And so thank you so much. Again,
thank
you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So much fun. So I know we'll have to have you guys back. It's just too fun. So double the trouble. I love
double the trouble. Definitely.
Yeah. That was actually the name in which we started the race. Yeah. Double the trouble. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will see you guys next week on another episode of the Candid Coxcast. For the first time in a long time, will not be a Dutch episode, but we will have another one coming up again. So stay tuned. And thank you so much again, everyone. Bye.
Bye.